All right, so today's math goal is to add whole numbers and decimals. So please write that down in your math notebook and write down what you already know about adding whole numbers and decimals. All right, let's take a look at our first problem. How would you add the following mentally? So go ahead and stop the video and add this up. See if you can do it mentally, and then come back to me. All right, so most of you probably were able to add this up just, mentally. $28.32, $28.32. You didn't have to really do any other math, right? If you didn't, if you had to do it a different way, that's okay, but you should be able to do this mentally pretty easy, pretty quick. All right, how would you add this mentally? So again, try to add this mentally if you can, and then come back to me. All right, so hopefully you came up with 43 and 26 hundredths. If you couldn't do it mentally, you could have rewritten it, right? 43, you could add a decimal and add 2 zeros for your placeholders, because remember, it doesn't matter. After a number, after the decimal, you can add as many zeros as you want. Line up the decimals. Remember, addition, subtraction, line up the decimals, line up the decimals, and then just simply add. All right, try another one. Try to do it mentally, but if you can't, go ahead and just, write it down vertically and then solve it. All right, you should have gotten 4 and 3 hundredths. And if you had to write it down, that's okay. Check your work with mine. All right, so we're going to get started. We're looking at adding whole numbers and adding decimals. Remember, just line up the decimals and then just simply add. So we're going to talk about a couple of different methods. So the new groups above method is probably what your parents grew up doing, what I grew up doing, what most of you probably feel more comfortable doing. I like to call it the old-fashioned method because that's the way I learned. Okay, so new groups above. So simply, the new groups above is just adding, the groups and then regrouping. So in this example here, I did 9 and plus 4 once equals 13. So I carried my 10 over to the 10 spot. 6 plus 8 is 14, plus the one I carried makes it 15. So I put my 5 down and I carried my 100 over. 7 plus 5 is 12, plus the 100 that I carried over makes it 13, and then I carry 1 over to the thousands place. 3 plus 1 is 4, gives me 4,353. Same thing with the decimal. All I got to remember is line up the decimals, line up the decimals. 6 plus 5 is 11, carry my 1 over to the tenths place. 9 plus 2 is 11, plus 1 is 12, carry 1 over to the ones place. 8 plus 4 is 12, plus 1 is 13. Carry my 1 over to the 10 spot. 4 plus 1 is 5, 53 and 21 hundredths. So this is probably one of the ways, that probably the easiest way, I think. So stop the video and write down these two examples, please. And label it new groups above. Do both examples. All right, so a cool little trick is to use lined paper, but turned sideways. So lined paper turned sideways to help you line up the decimals. Notice here in my example, I put my decimals right on the line. I use each one of the lines as a placeholder, and this way you can't make a mistake. So this is a great trick that you should use, because believe it or not, the most common mistake is not lining up the numbers correctly in the right place value, and that's where you make a mistake, and that's where things go wrong. Or forgetting to bring down your decimal. That's the other common mistake. So please use your line paper sideways. All right, another example is to do the subtotal method. And in this method, I'm going to solve the problems adding from right to left. You can also do it from left to right, but I don't like doing it that way because I'm not used to doing addition from left to right. I'm used to going from right to left, starting in my ones place, okay? All right, so to do that, You just simply start adding the way you normally would. So I'm going to add up my ones. 9 plus 4 is 13. I'm going to place it down. Then I'm going to add my tens. 60 plus 80 is 140. So I'm going to write that right below. 700 plus 500 is 1200. Write that down below. And 300 plus nothing is, 3000 plus nothing is 3000. And so then I just simply add them up. And same thing with my decimals. I'm doing the same thing. I'm going to add the hundreds first. 600s plus 500s is 1100s. 9 tenths plus 2 tenths gives me 1 and 1/10. 8 ones and 4 ones gives me 12. 4 plus 40 plus nothing gives me 40. And then I just add it up. I like the other method, but whatever method works for you. This is also another method. All right. Okay, so I want you to try some. Oops, look at my try some, right? Made a mistake there. Oops. All right, I stopped the video because I had to fix that. It bugged me. All right, so try some. So this one's already written out for you with your decimals being lined up. This one is not lined up, so I would suggest both ways that you turn your lined paper sideways and line up your decimals. So remember, addition, subtraction, line up the decimals, line up the decimals. What do? Line up the decimals, line up the decimals. So remember to do that. So pause the video and try these two, any method that you want to do, and then come back to me. All right, so if you did it the new groups above method, you would add the hundreds first, and I would put a 0 here as a placeholder, just to know that it's, you have a place value here. 5 plus 0 is 5, 9 plus 0 is 9. Bring down the decimal, don't forget to bring that down. And I bring it down just as I'm going along so I don't forget. 8 plus 3 is 11, carrying my 1 over to the tens place. 4 plus 1 is 5. 2 plus 0 is 2. 251 and 95 hundredths. For the other one, 6 plus 8 is 14. Carry my 1 over to the tenth spot. 2 plus 3 is 5 plus 6 makes 6 tenths. 2 plus 1 is 3. 9 plus 3 is 12. Carry my 1 over to the hundreds. 3 plus 1 is 4. 423 and 64 hundredths. Now, if you did it the other way, if you did it the subtotal method, let me show you that right now. So again, same thing. I added my, forgot to put my placeholder there. There we go. 5 hundredths plus 0 is 5 hundredths. 9 tenths plus 0 is 9 tenths. 8 plus 3 is 11. 4 plus 0 is 40, because this is a 40 plus 0, right? And 200 plus nothing is 200. Line, just add it up like normal. Same thing over here. 8 plus 6 is 14 hundredths. 2 plus 3 is 5 tenths. 2 plus 1 is 3. 30 plus 90 is 120, and 300 plus nothing is 300 added up. All right, so that is it for today. So write down in your math notebook what you learned. So you learned 2 different ways of adding, right? Proof of learning by solving a problem, and a reflection or a question you may have.